Today we're joined with Rick at Punk Panther. So, Punk Panther, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you set up Punk Panther, please, Rick?
Sure. Well, the full story, if you've got a few minutes, is that I started off as an orienteer back in when I was a teenager, and I took part in that for many, many years, and then stopped running, stopped doing anything, put on lots of weight, ended up being nearly 18 stone just at the start of the new millennium, and I saw an advert on telly which was about heart health and couch potatoes, and the little kid bringing a picture of her daddy being fat, and I thought, that's me. And I was at a family barbecue, and I'd forgotten something, and I went to run home to get it, and I couldn't even run to the end of the street, and I thought, this is dire. So I made a commitment to enter the following year's London Marathon. So I trained up, lost loads of weight, and ended up about 12 and a half stone, and in not many months, and people hadn't seen me for a few months, thought that I was, seriously ill or something.
Right.
But the London Marathon, got to the end, and still felt fresh. And so my neighbour said, what, you need a bigger challenge. So he then saw this article about Hadrian's Wall, and that Hadrian's Wall Walk was about to be launched. So I went up and ran that for charity, and raised £3,500 for the African Children's Choir. And so I'd never heard of ultra running at all. I just went and did it, and did it again the following year. And then what happened was I found out that there was actually a race on it. So I then entered the race and did that a couple of times. And then the big part of my story is that 7 years ago, next month, I collapsed with a cardiac arrest, heart attack, and was dead for 20 minutes. And so what happened was I was first passerby thought I just tripped, put me in the recovery position, and the second one discovered I wasn't breathing. So they started CPR, got a defibrillator. The air ambulance attended and took me to the LGI, Leeds General Infirmary. And I'd stopped breathing 3 times at the scene, and again in the air ambulance, and subsequently had to have a triple bypass. And this was all caused by a hereditary undiagnosed condition. So it was nothing I was doing. Anyway, the long and short of that was I wanted to refocus my life. And my wife said, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I used to organise orienteering events when I was a teenager. I kind of like this ultra running stuff. I'd like to organise an event. And there was a local route called the Welcome Way. And I thought, oh, that'd be perfect. And there was another one that the council were looking at developing, which is the North Leeds Greenway, which we've actually got on New Year's Day. And that takes you into the centre of Leeds, but along all the parkways and ginnels within Leeds. So that it's virtually all off-road. And I thought, I wonder if you could run an ultra on this. And there's also the Six Dales Trail. And I'm thinking, I'd like to do 2. And Bev turned around to me and said, no, you're not doing 2. Make it worth your while, do 6, have a race series of 6. So I then devised 3 of my own routes as well. And we launched in 2017. And we had 101 people enter our first event, which was kind of mind-blowing. And we've added races ever since. And we now do at least 1 a month. Now, where did the name come from? When the internet first set up, I was on a chat forum, and you needed to have a pseudonym, and I was a punk back in the 70s, and my favorite cartoon was Pink Panther, so I put the 2 together and became the Punk Panther. So when I ran that first London Marathon, I did hair pink and ran as the Punk Panther. And when we were looking at a name for the running business, thought, actually that makes sense, punk it up, and that's what we did. So it proved popular. So I am the Punk Panther.
You need to go and get your outfit now and put it on. That's brilliant. People don't realize, you know what I mean? So fantastic to hear a little bit more background there, and your passions come back full circle and has taken you into ultra running and everything like that. So what year did you set up Punk Panther, and how's it been going through the establishing a race series with COVID and things like that?
Yeah, sure. So our first race was March 2017, which was, as I said, the Welcome Ultra. And we completed 6 races in that year and slowly expanded. And then COVID hit, as we all know, and we weren't able to put on races for a while because of full lockdown. Fortunately, because we're independent and small, when full lockdown was lifted and sporting events could start to take place, we were able to put on small scale events where we were starting people every 2 minutes. And so there wasn't a big mass start, and people were able to socially distance, etc. So we were able to continue. We managed to run 8 events in 2020, and we're back now to full swing. We're always looking at changing things and developing things and putting in different races. COVID has hit. We found that a lot of runners are either suffering from long COVID and unable to do the longer distances. And also the financial crisis has meant that we're finding a lot of people signing up on the last day. For our last event, we had something like 25% of the runners sign up within 48 hours of the event closing. And then people still wanting to join after it. The entries are closed because of those factors. So one of the things we've done is we've introduced a 13-mile and a 20-mile trail race to most of our events, which is great for bringing on new ultra runners or people that want to start trail running, haven't quite got the confidence to do the full distance, but also for long-term runners who are either injured or suffering from long COVID. They can then come back through the shorter races and still be part of it. So they're doing okay. So our numbers have been okay, but it's been a different mix.
You've kind of adapted your race series to fit more and to help, really, because that's part of the beauty of what you're doing there, So the trails that could you run through your race series for us, if possible? What events and what distances? That'd be great. And whereabouts they're based?
Yeah, sure. So virtually all of it is based in it's all based in Yorkshire at the moment. We go up into the Dales for a lot of the races. The original race series was all based in Otley, which is where I'm based. And we still have 6 of the race series in Otley, but we've expanded a little bit more for the next year. Last year we did one in Harrogate, and we'll be doing that again. That'll be our February race. We've done in the past the Dales Way, which is a fantastic route. We do it in reverse, so we do it from Bowness on Windermere to Ilkley. We've done that a few times now, and we also do the Dales Highway, which is a much more challenging 90-mile race from Saltaire to Appleby in Westmoreland. But at the end, with it being a 90-mile race, I had several people say, "You can't do a 90-mile. We want to do 100." So what we've done was, I devised a loop at the end, a 14-mile loop, which goes up High Cup Nick. Now, for anybody that knows High Cup Nick, it's one of the most stunning views country up there. But it's a challenge after 90 miles to do 2,500 foot of climb. So
definitely, isn't it?
Yeah, we get quite a few people sign up for that. But when they get, because the 90-mile finishes in Appleby, and then you go out again, quite a lot of people get to Appleby and they say, "I've had enough. I'm not going to do that."
It depends on the state of the feet, really, doesn't it? A lot of the time,
It's a tough course because of the timings, and you're starting early morning in Saltaire. Virtually every single runner is at the Howgills overnight. Now, if you've ever run on the Howgills, they're stunning, but they're quite bleak and barren.
Yeah.
And if you're over there in inclement weather, which can hit in the summer, it's a challenge, and that can really drain runners. Yeah. So it's a really tough course, but a beautiful course. So we do that one. We're also introducing a new race in Skipton next year. And the longer version of that race will go from Skipton. It goes out on the Dales Highway and returns on the Pennine Way, or River Way and Pennine Way, with 1 or 2 other little bits. But it goes to Malham, over Fountains Fell and over Pen y Ghent, and then returns. So it's quite a challenging course. We've also got one in Ripon, which is based on the Ripon Round. The Harrogate one, by the way, is based on, there's two long distance walks around Harrogate. So you can do one of them in a loop, or you can do both of them and join them up, as it were, to make a full ultra. Then our sort of special weekend is the one that you've featured on. One of our runners did an article for your website, maybe going into magazine, which is the Nidderdale Way. And we hire the Pateley Bridge Showground in October. And so far we've done loops of the Nidderdale Way. So you can do a 28-mile half loop. You can do 55-mile full loop. You can go around 1.5 times again to do 83, or go around twice for 110, 111 miles. And we've had one runner that's done that 3 years in a row. And for a while, there was only 2 runners that had ever managed to go out and back, because it's such a mental challenge. Because every sort of 28 miles, you come back to your car.
Yeah.
And if you come back to your car in the early hours of the morning, and you get into your car.
Yeah, whereas if you're in the middle of nowhere and you're at a checkpoint, you're going to push on, aren't you? But if it's the comfort and you got your car keys and everything like that, and and you're feeling it a bit.
Yeah, we also do a Dark Skies Trail Marathon during that weekend, and next year we're adding in the shorter distances on the Sunday, so a half marathon and a 20-mile, as well as another ultra on the Sunday. So we're putting lots of races on, all based on the Nidderdale Way, which is one of the most stunning places I've been to. We were that impressed that we've actually sited our caravan at Pateley Bridge on a seasonal pitch there. So we go there very regular. But that's a lovely place.
I think that's the beauty, isn't it? That's the beauty of what we do, really, isn't it? We get to kind of go to some of the most stunning places, and also hidden gems as well. People don't know how beautiful they are, do they?
Well, that's one of the reasons for putting these on, and we'll be looking in the future potentially to putting more on into the Dales, because I just love being out in the Dales and out in the wilderness, and being on a moor and nobody around, and it's just fantastic. And that's what I really love, and seeing the wildlife and all the, it's just great. So that's my passion. That's why I enjoy doing it, and I want others to enjoy it. And we've had people come from all over the country and all over the world. We've had runners from China, Malaysia, America, Canada, and I'll probably forget half the places, but most European countries. We've had people coming across from Turkey, and it
also says a lot about what you do. You care for your runners, you care for people, the community that you've built. I think it's really because of you, that they do it, as well as the scenery and all the things that kind of comes with the race, So congratulations to yourself on establishing that, because it is hard as well behind the scenes, isn't
it? Very hard, but let's say with it being a almost like a hobby and a passion, it makes it that much easier. And we build up friendships with our runners wherever possible, and we welcome people in, and we take an interest in them, and we've got obviously a Facebook page where we get to know people, and that's what we really like about it. That it's a community, and we're like-minded people, and it's great.
It's amazing. It's amazing to see just how the ultra running scene has developed over the years in the UK, isn't it? So the trails that you tend to use, are they dedicated trails, or is it more navigation? Is it
Okay, yeah, good point. So you were saying earlier about the distances. For our race series, and for the majority of the races, we do a half marathon, a 20-mile, a 50k, and a 50-mile. The longer they are, the more approximate they are. So the 50ks can be anywhere from sort of 32 miles to 35, 36. It just all depends. But there's always a difference between the distances on the day. And we tape the all the half marathons, 20 miles and 50k, apart from the ones at the Nidderdale. We've not taped them yet because they're very well marked.
Yeah.
Some of the courses are on existing long distance walks, so don't need too much taping. So like with the Dales, we don't take the longer races like the Dales Way and the Dales Highway because they're very well waymarked by the organisations. And I'm actually on the committee for the Dales Way, and they're friends of mine, Tony and Chris Grogan, that developed the Dales Highway, and they always provide one of the checkpoints for us, so they always marshal for us, which is lovely to have the design on the course.
Says everything, doesn't it? You know, it's brilliant.
Yeah. So the other ones, as I say, we waymark them. All 50k and above, we provide trackers and a tracker link onto our website, so we know where people are. And people on the shorter courses can pay extra and hire the trackers. But because of the cost of the trackers, you need to make the price of the event affordable as well. So, you know, the compromise.
Exactly. It's very difficult to offer that on something which is a shorter distance, because it then increases the price, and it can kind of put people off that paying that price, you know. So it's isn't it? And I guess in the Dales as well, sometimes the signal's not the greatest, is it? You know, a bit up and down at times.
No, although I've noticed as the years have been going on, the signal's been getting a little better. So on the Nidderdale Way, for example, there is zero signal at Scar House Reservoir, and on the Scar House Reservoir. But this year we did pick up one or two bits of signal on the way. So I actually had one runner text me to say, "I've just lost my tracker. I can't believe it. I've dropped my tracker." And I looked on the website and it was still moving. And I said, "Well, either somebody's picked it up or you haven't dropped it." And he said, "I can't believe it. It's dropped down in my pack. I found it." So it was working because that was going towards Scar House in an area where previously we'd never had a signal. So it is picking up a little bit.
From an organizer's point of view as well, just having that window of view where your runners are in a race, it's just, you know, it's just from a safety point of view, it's peace of mind, isn't it?
We have sweepers on the half marathon, 20 mile and 50k races. Occasionally on the longer races, but we certainly have them on the shorter races. And they stay, if they get to a checkpoint and we've not recorded a runner through the checkpoint, because we sort of do belt and braces, we manually write down when people have gone through the checkpoint. And if somebody's not been recorded as going through, if they've got a tracker, we'll check where the tracker is. If they haven't, because it's a shorter course, we'll ring them. And we'll continue to ring them until we make contact, and we'll hold the sweepers back just in case, so that, you know, the sweepers are out there on the, you know, if they're needed to go look for them, we've got people actually out on the course to do so. And we've also got a medic that goes along the course as well, so he sort of keeps around the tends to be the back runners, just to make sure everything's okay.
And your event team must be incredibly important to you. You know, does it change every now and then? Do you have new people coming in and that kind of thing?
Well, we've got a core. There's three of us that are the organisers, and then we've got some of our marshals are regular and are there at most events. So we've got a core team of people that know what they're doing. And you know, they're volunteers, but they're great because we can rely on them. We also need runners as well, marshals, and we offer the marshals free race places for their time. We basically put on as many marshals as we feel necessary, depending on how many runners we've got. So we sort of have a formula depending on how many runners as to how many marshals we have at the checkpoint. But I always like to try and make sure there's a minimum of 2 and hopefully 2 cars, because if a runner gets into trouble, at least we've got some vehicular support at the checkpoint that we can then then have some around the course as well. So safety is a massive priority.
Absolutely.
But the funny thing was, I remember when I very first set up, and I did all the documentation, and I went to the local safety advisory group, and I put my proposals to them as to these races that I was going to do. And they said, where's your first aid points? And I said, well, this is a 32-mile race. Where do you want the first aid points? You know, I'm running over moors. And they said, well, you've got to have a first aid station. I think so. I sort of rang some of the people that offer that, and they're like £400 for an ambulance. And I'm thinking, yeah, where do I put that? You know, so the problem is with runners, you've got to have some sort of sense. This is not a road race where you have marshals at every junction and marshals on the. You have to. So that's why we have our compulsory kits, which you'll be aware of. We make sure that people carry. And on the shorter distances, quite often people say, well, I wouldn't normally run with a kit for 13 miles. And we say, well, if you're doing one of our races, you need it. Because if we've got 100 people out there and somebody takes a fall, even 13 miles, you can be out on a moor somewhere. And even in the summer, if it takes an hour to get rescue to you, you can start, your body can go into shock.
But people just need to take it, you know, take the advice and carry what they need to carry, you know. So on the Punk Panther race series now, you've got one pretty much every single month. So it's a fantastic setup.
But now we've got some races which are race series races and some that aren't. So we're trying to sort of make it more accessible to everybody so that you can do a 13-mile race series or a 20-mile race series. And we offer season tickets as well for discounted races for people that are prepared to. But what we try and do is, because we're runners ourselves, we think, what would we like? And we sort of speak to people, say, what would you like? How can we help? And, you know, for those that can, that's what we do.
In terms of if people wanted to find out more about Punk Panther, where would they go?
Yeah, so the simplest way is just to do some sort of background research is www.punkpanther.co.uk. So it's a nice, easy email address to remember, or look us up on Facebook. We're a friendly bunch. We'll always answer questions, and it's best. I've always said in life, it's better to ask a silly question than to make a silly mistake. So we're there for. Just one thing I really like about ultra running and our races in particular, but I'm sure this is typical of most, is that we've got some really top runners that take part. We had one runner who during lockdown, he sprinted off at top speed, and we sort of laughed and thought, well, he's not going to carry on that speed because he's about to run up the Chevin, which is a local hill, and several of our races go straight up Chevin, and it's quite a steep climb. Got to checkpoint 1 and they rang me up and said, who's this guy? He's just sprinted through the checkpoint. He hasn't stopped. Checkpoint 2 did the same. And 32 miles later, or whatever it's 35 miles later, in under 4 hours, he was sprinting uphill to the finish. And it was a top fell runner who wasn't able to get on any fell runs, who decided to do a few ultras. But so you've got that sort of really fast runner, but at the end, you know, friendly chat, great. And then we're there hours and hours and hours later for people that are either fast walkers or slow joggers, and they're all taking part in the same race. And there aren't many other sports where you've got your top elite runners taking part on the same course at the same time, starting at the same time as some of the slower runners who are there for enjoyment as well. We always set out 3 miles an hour for the slowest runner. So if you can get over a course at 3 miles an hour, you'll get in within the cutoffs. And there are a couple of races. So we do one which is the Sixdales Trail, where we run from Otley to Pateley Bridge and back. And several people say that's an unusual event, but they like it because certainly some of our faster runners, it's great because once they go off, they don't see anybody the whole day. And also, if you're in last place, you might never see anybody all day. You know, so at the extremes, you don't see people. You know you're in an event, but if you've got an out and back route, you're guaranteed to see everybody. So the slowest runner see the fastest runner. And so for some people, they say they really like that because they get to see people when they're out on the course. And sometimes you see that although you may be 10 minutes behind somebody, when you actually see them out on the course and you're sort of 5 minutes from the turnaround and they're coming back at you or something like that, you think, crumbs, I'm not that far behind them. You know, I'm actually very close to. It's like if checkpoints, you'll go into an indoor checkpoint and you think, oh, I'm not doing so well. And you see somebody in there and you think, oh my God, if I get my act together quick, I can actually get out ahead of them. But yeah,
it is one of them, isn't it? And sometimes it works the other way, doesn't it? You know, it's where you arrive at a checkpoint, you've been really, really strong, and you arrive at a checkpoint, and then you're changing your socks or you're having something to eat, and then somebody goes in and out that you just took over, you know. So so it can be work the opposite direction as well, you know. But yeah.
One of my favourite little races that we do is I devised this before the Backyard Ultra, and we have an event called Panther Takes the Hindmost. And what happens on that is you run a marathon first of all, and then after you've run the marathon, and it's a looped course. So once you've run that, you then start the elimination laps. So everybody's guaranteed to do an ultra distance, but every 10K lap, the person in last place is eliminated. Now, it could be that somebody drops out partway round because it goes around a couple of reservoirs and you can stop halfway around and just do half a lap. So you might think that there's somebody behind you, but unless you can see that person behind you, that person might have actually dropped out. So you might actually be the last person. So the last person each lap is eliminated until you get to the last three runners, and then they can continue for basically as long as they like.
It's a good idea, you know.
It's quite an interesting sort of concept. A little more brutal at times than the Backyard.
I think that's one of the great things about the sport as well, is that there's so many different angles, isn't there?
Yeah, but the other thing I like about it is it's a 10K loop rather than a 4-mile loop. You know, so it's a little bit more challenging.
Yeah,
and I get to take part in that every year myself. I hand that race over to my colleague to direct that race.
That's the beauty about the loop ones. They're a bit more controlled, aren't they? A bit more controlled, so everybody's coming back to that focal point, aren't they? So yeah, it is from an event organizer's point of view, it's easy to kind of step out of that one a little bit, isn't it? Yeah, brilliant. Yeah. Well, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you today, and thanks so much for sharing.
You're welcome. Yeah, as I say, we're here. We love running. We run ourselves. We try and enter as many races as we can, and we're there for others, and enjoy being part of it all.